clean your shit. No calorie logic. Muscle brain. Skinny brain. Count the calories in your Confucius saying, like Chinese rice and chips, sweet and sour power.
Sweet and sour movement.
And in this world of stinking memories, stinking memories, city futures, the man in the shiny bowl of your brain. Making your music, preparation. The fruits of a life. Mental, physical value. And the Lord to charge. Psychological Holy shit. Holy shit.
Which one is George Clinton?
Fried ice cream is a reality.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of African Americans and Africans, the Think Show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American didn't find him or herself to America in the bottom of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous One. And let me explain a little bit why the emphasis is on music. Some of the music we've been playing over the last couple of episodes. I talk to the younger cats, the cats in their 30s, 20s and stuff, and they're always wanting to know stuff. And they're like, well, they realize that the music they listen to is garbage. They realize that the music they listen to this is a way indigenous people used to communicate with instruments. Since we know nothing about ourselves, we don't even know that. We don't even know that. Instruments. Instruments make sounds, makes feelings, changes the vibration. These are things we used to do like shit on a Friday night down at the river, fishing. These are the things we used to do. These these things that the world loves is what you created. But now you want to do it the computer generated way and it doesn't have the same effect. My suggestion to you is you go on with that shit. Music, change your thoughts, change the way you look at things. What you get from music is very powerful. And I hope we don't lose that, about ourselves. That was Parliament Funkadelic called Doodoo Chasers. And the song is simply about people who chase shit. And that's something the African American does very well. A couple of weeks ago, no, probably a little longer, probably a couple of months ago, this sister Rebel called me up and she said, Carrie, we got to talk about Tartaria. And what I've heard and learned about Tartaria is what I knew at the time, because we can always learn. All we have to do is ask questions. All we have to do is listen to what other people say, because people know stuff that you don't know. I know stuff that other people don't know. They know stuff that I don't know. We all can't know everything. That's why the instruments are important, because it brings people together. They have those type of powers to do. When this sister talked about Tartaria, I was thinking about Tartaria is like a Russian, all them foreign countries type ideology. But she shared something and made me look at it a whole nother way. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to be here if she needs me. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to, if you don't know already, Sister Bad. Listen to what this sister got to say. Rebel, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Can you turn your mic up a little bit because I can't hear you? Can you turn your mic up just a little bit so I can hear you? Because I can't hear you. That
Uh, can you guys hear me okay? Because I, I'm fine.
hold on. I'm trying to see how can we do this because I can't. Normally I can. Hold on 1 second. All right. Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
yeah I can hear you. It's kind of light, but I can hear you though.
Okay.
You think I should go out and come back in?
No,
Okay. All
I
right.
think you should just go with it.
Okay. I hope everybody is well. Um, I want to. I talked about the Tatarian the last time, and a lot of people they was receptive to it, but some people wasn't. And what I want to talk about now, now that I didn't talk about the Tatarian, I want to talk about the World Fair, or you can call it the Mudslide theory. And this ties into the Tatarian because we have been programmed to just believe that we was these slaves, and then even when they tell us that when we say we're indigenous to America, they still try to put us close to slavery. And I think a lot of us, the reason why we don't want to come out of that is because it's more easier to call yourself a slave. So you don't have to do any research. You don't have to check anything. And if you really look, once you really begin to understand who you are and what you're looking for, your buildings is fragments, but they're still here. And if you go in like the hood, if you go in the hood, you can see small replicas of the buildings that you once had. And a lot of our buildings, like that's why we're mesmerized when we see the White House and they claim slaves built that. No, slaves didn't build that. We built, the indigenous people built that. But most of our buildings was built like that. But what they when after the World's Fair, and let me just elaborate on the World's Fair for a few minutes. When it comes to the World Fair, what they did is this is what they claimed they did. Let's take Chicago. The World Fair in Chicago happened in 1893 in Chicago. So what they did is they claim it was 800 acres of land, and they built all these buildings. And then after the World Fair normally lasted for 6 months, and after the World Fair, they blew up the buildings. And what they did is they did some work on the buildings, but the buildings was already there. So they sprayed them with white paint, so you would think the buildings was new. They wasn't new. They was already there. But that was a part of the reset. That was a part of them resetting America to a new ethnic group, if that's what you want to call it. So what they had to do is they had to change the narrative. And we was just that powerful. We was just that powerful. They had to change it. And within this World Fair, they had incubators, premature babies in these incubators back in the 1800s. And the boys wore pink, the girls wore blue. But what people don't understand, that was pink is a masculine color, blue is a feminine color. Everything they did to us, they reversed everything, so we never found out the truth. Even if we was getting close to it, we'll still have to reverse it in order to find out the truth. And if you look at the people in these pictures, if you really look at them, they look like they was visitors. And when they tell you, oh, we had no, we it was horse and buggy type people, when you really look at that, you have to look at back in 1893, we had fax machines. We had wireless communication. And then on top of that, the World's Fair, it was in Chicago, it was 60 countries that visited this World's Fair. How did they get the telegram if we were still on horse and buggy? You know, and another thing too, after you complete, because it was almost like an orientation. It was almost like an orientation that they were sending these people through. After when the World's Fair was over with, before they blew it up, they gave the people a Pan America certificate for them coming and go and participating in the World Fair. They got a Pan America certificate. So before there was Pan Africa, it was a Pan America. And when I put that on my page, you're going to always get that resistance, like you shouldn't be saying that. But it was a building. It's a building right here, and it still stands in Washington, D.C. And the building, it deals with Pan American, meaning North and South America. That's what it deals with right here in America, right in Washington, D.C. But they got us saying that we're Pan-African. We're Pan-Africans. We need to go back to Africa. And one thing we have to understand and we have to look at, and I'm not telling, like I always tell people, I'm not telling nobody to go team up with white people. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to put down color, because when you look deep at this, at everything, you're going to realize that your people had a lot to do with it too. It wasn't only white folks or pale folks, whatever you want to call them. It was your people too. And your people is still doing the same thing, because I get daily, I get people telling me, no, you're lying, you're an African. You're an African. But what I want to ask, I ask the people, okay, I'm an African, but why something so important? You claim that Africa is the motherland of everything. Africa don't need anything. But why was it not one world fair held in Africa? Why? If it's the if you they put Africa on this big pedestal, but it was held right here in America. And see, people don't look at that. Even if you go to the African map in 1942 and you look for Sierra Leone, places where they said we came from, they wasn't even there then. So it's just that everything they told you is a lie. And Empress Lisa said it best when y'all did the video. I believe it was last Friday, when she said that you have to look at the soul of the person. You have to look at the soul of a person and stop just looking at the color, because they taught us to look at people with a low vibration, to always look at a color and judge people on that color. But sometimes you cannot do it, because it be your own people behind it, behind everything. And we don't want to admit to this, because we've been told, like, if you look at the average melanated person, we're very, it's like we're chasing a ghost. We're trying to get somewhere where we can remember that we had something because of the way we carry ourselves. But it's all been taken from us. This is why we dress the way we dress. This is why we wear the gold in our mouth. This is why you see these young boys and they hair is like the Aztecs, because that's your history. This is why you see melanated women in America. It's a certain way we have to look. It's a certain way our hair have to be, because we was those people. We was of royalty, but we was taught to always think that we was a slave, and we was never a slave. The bulk of us in America was never a slave.
I mean, I'm with you right there. Some of the things you said, how they got us thinking we live in these pyramid shaped tents, and that we lived out in the land, and we're just nomadic. We're people just, you got a whole country with all these resources, all this stuff going on. Everybody wants to be here, but the people who lived here lived homeless. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean. Goddamn, we got to. I mean, serious. Like when you just said that a lot of our people was in on it. I mean, that's how come we so damn stupid and can't think now. And we got to stop this baby stuff. Like we're not stupid. With all this going on, what we see right in front of our eyes, I'm talking about not on TV. When we walk outside our doors, and we don't see all these homeless veterans, and something's on their mind, and what? We're not making nothing better for them, these kids out here. What kind of hoes are we? I want to bring to the program right now with us now. He gonna come in and chime in with us. Is Jim Red Wolf. What's going on, brother?
Hey, Halito. Hey, it's great to be here. Hey, I want y'all to know that this is Indigenous One's platform, and especially Rob Bell. She's doing her thing, and y'all, we need to continue to support our brother, so that way they don't try and what they're trying to do with those of us who make sense, remove us, and they do it methodically, not even with people no more, it's with AI. But anywho, well, Bell, she right on. I'm gonna be starting something. I was on the laptop. It started funny, so I had to update. But she on point. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to come in and like give sources and information to back up what she's saying, because she's telling you the truth. A lot of y'all have heard me before, even on Kerry's. Well, I said everything is upside down, inverted, backwards, reverse, and that is 4 different things. They sound like they mean the same, but they're 4 different things. And this is the only way they can subjugate us to what they have, the perversions that we're dealing with in life. First thing was to make sure you knew you was not Indian or indigenous or aboriginal, whatever fucking term you want to utilize for original to this soil, not from some far distance land or setting. The thing about Tartaria, and the beautiful thing why I love it, we were the Republic. People have heard the stories about the what was it called, the starving seasons. I think we helped so-called Ethiopia like 2 or 3 times. Long canoes. It don't take that long to get over there. And then the fact that they had us believing we were thousands of miles away from, Russia and all that when we was growing up in, history class. We're only 55 miles away from it, Alaska to Russia. 55 damn miles. I'm a little sadistic, y'all know me. I mean, I'd rather be out there with a bunch of these idiots in the backyard knocking their jaw off. I mean, that's who I am, honestly. But I'm doing things, I guess you could say, democratic way. Mudslides, all that, everything she tells you is real. Trust me. I wanted to tap on this stuff. I got so much goddamn information, it's unbelievable. I just want to give you a little something. The largest human zoo, because she's going to get into that, in the world history, 1904, World's Fair in St. Louis. Now, there's a history of mudslide and giants there. Now, they made them all myth. And I think she's going to do really good in that, and that's going to give you a little more proof. Because we know that the World's Fair, they showed the original Mexicans. Those Negroes with big-ass afros, like little midgets, like Mississippi midgets, that I had to go and show that were in the congressional records as far as different tribes or clans in different locations. Congressional records are all kind of stuff. It's not just one kind. It's great information. As far as specimen days, that's what it was called. You got to remember now, Tartaria was stunned. And how did it happen? War. And what I'm starting to realize, it started with the fake Revolutionary War. And it never stopped. Nobody lived in those cities because we were too busy fighting. We've been fighting these motherfuckers nonstop since then. Now, there's a history that goes back to the 1300s, but that's some other stuff. But when you want to get into like the 1600s, when they started formulating and they started bringing more people over here, it still wasn't enough. So they had to get us to fight each other. And by us fighting each other, jungle warfare, there was nobody in these grand cities. These cities existed. Now, the beautiful thing about when I started doing a little more, further research and Tartaria as far as the grand city. Now, St. Petersburg, Russia, a lot of that is thousands of years old. Just as Germany was before World War I and World War II. There's still a number of buildings over there, but it was so majestic and big, it rivaled Rome. But here, we had cities from one coast to the other coast. Major cities, no teepees and tents. We utilized longhouses and wigwams for ceremonial. Woman's rites of passage, man's rites of passage. Sometimes out there for 7 days to a month, doing certain things where others could not partake in. A walk of right, a ritual of right. All right. Our women didn't sit up there with some goofy doctor with tongs, decapitating babies, pulling them out. We didn't do, as some ladies, I'm not gonna say no names, said that we did medicinal ways to abort babies. That mentality shows you a mindset that's geared in the enemies. Margaret Singer. You see what I'm saying? Tartaria, it was about life, peace, structure. There weren't no wars. None. And we had these grand, beautiful cities all over. I made it my business when I was in the military and traveling. The last time I traveled here, I stopped at like several different places. I knew, oh, this is no way around. I've been to Rome, all over Italy. I've been all over Greece. All of these different places I've been all over numerous times. And I'm sitting here saying, whoa, this stuff is exactly the same as over there. And this shit is old. It was not built in no 18th, 19th century. We're talking about thousands of years, literally, literally. And I know it's hard for people to grasp this truth. I cannot push the fundamental, thought that you need to go and research this information. It is ready and available. I have 3 books on Tartaria. Why do I have these 3 books and I travel the world? Because they were the closest thing I could find that would resemble what I've seen and what I've learned. Like Rob Bell says, chew up the meat and spit out the bones. Everything in every book that we have is not factual, but damn it if it's not close. Thing is, you got to be able to, pick and choose what is real and what is. I know a lot of people have a hard time with that. I wanted to be on my laptop, but I didn't want to be on my damn phone because this looks weird, bro. It's so tiny and shit. But this is our platform, y'all. I just don't want to. Y'all know me. I got so much information. I don't want to, I'm not into doing it. My sister got it down. I love listening to what she has to say. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna share one more thing though. All right, because I'm gonna do a live about some of this myself because it's important to reach all angles. This right here, this is about Missouri disasters. Now you want to get into this is like, I would say, besides the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, or 20th century, 1904, 1911, or something like that. Well, anyway, this is before that. This is 1785 to the present, where they had to cry about the levee is breaking from Birds Point South. Get out at once. That was the first major mudslide we had in a very long time. But what it uncovered is what's important. Go check it out. Missouri disasters, 1785. All right. No other kind of natural disaster has caused more death and destruction than floods. Fertile flood plans have supported agriculture millennia because annual flooding left nutrient-rich silt deposits behind. Bounded on the east by the Mississippi River and bisected by the Missouri River and connected rivers and streams, there is a rich historical record of floods in Missouri. Some particularly stand out. Now, what I love about what they do, they give you enough to reel you in. You really got to do the footwork. Like I said, chew the meat, spit out the bones, and then research the information they give. So whatever they make a statement here and they've got a reference, go and check that reference. And it will give you more information. All right. I'm not gonna go through all that. I'm just gonna share this part, but though I have this stuff, so I don't want to rob the time. In the flood of 1785, the French settlement of Saint Genevieve, all right, for those who know, I've been over there, was completely inundated by the Mississippi River, precipitating its move inland from the floodplain. Considered the greatest ever on the Missouri River, the floods of July 1844, crested at 41.32 feet. We're talking about St. Louis, people. But see, what they're not saying here, that if you start doing more research, it's going to point to footprints, old cities that are buried under mud, showing themselves. This information is there, trust me. But this is what they do when they just want to give you a little geographical history on a certain place. And what do I call? What's the name of Illinois? Well, we know that Chicago was Shalaka. They want to say Shalaka. They want to change everything because they want to make sure that you not your history. And are you aware, even though that's in the latter parts of the World's Fair, Chicago was one of the most, other than what they did in California, one of the most memorable. The shit they had over in Chicago, you would have thought you was in Rome. I'm gonna give it back to my sis.
Okay. You have anything to say, Karen?
So if you listen,
I want to touch on.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
you
me?
have anything to say, Carrie?
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Jim was saying and what you're talking about, man, this is why it's so important for you to search your families, because many of you guys' family have been affected by some of the events that you're talking about, because he just said 1765. That ain't that long ago. So a lot of our families and stuff, a lot of these things that's happening, Because one of the things, a reason for these cities is to keep you locked in a certain place.
That's right.
You can't go out and check out other things. You can't take river and canoe rides down rivers and lake like you used to do. They set up something for you. That's how they do it. We don't think of it like that. I live in LA. I do. Uh, I mean, there's so much and so vast. All they do is take pictures at a certain spot and show you, and you think that's the world. It's not. Listen to what they say about what is happening, the changes, not just of the times, but of the earth. What these people built to take all your shit away. Okay, Rebel, I'm sorry.
No, you good. You good. It's good. I'm glad all
But
three of us is talking. Um, I want to touch on something so you get what what they have been doing is doing now. John Singletary. I hope I'm saying his name right. He came out with the movie Rosewood, and
mhm,
then we heard about Tulsa, Oklahoma. We heard about Lake Lanier. We heard about Ota Binga,
bingo.
Sarah Bartman.
Mhm.
These was this was that was a part. What they did is they took from the World's Fair and what was going on back in the day, and they used it, and they gave you snippets of what was really going on, like Rosewood, how they burned up everything. They was doing it. I get it that Mother Nature was playing her part too, but they couldn't beat us on feet. They couldn't do it. So they was just dropping bombs on us. And I want to tell you about a story about in Philly on Osage Street, the Move. They was called Move. That happened in 1985 when they blew them people when they just dropped bombs on two streets. Like no, like 60 homes.
That's right.
They've been doing this to us. This is the reason why they have to keep us in fear, because they don't want us to, the way I'm speaking out, the way Carrie Davis is speaking out, Empress Lisa, James Branch, the way we're speaking out, they don't want that. That's just like when I was in Pan African, when I was in that movement. Ota Benga, Otabenga. This was an African boy. They took his teeth and made his teeth like veins, all his teeth. And I learned about him when I was in Pan Africanism. Come to find out, when he first started out, it was a anthropologist that discovered him in Africa. Had discovered this young man. He was like a pygmy, like them little short guys, and he was a main attraction at the World Fair. See, so the reason why I'm saying that is because these Pan Africans knew about this World Fair. Because how did you, if you read on Ota Bingo, you should see, because that story pops up. Because I had no clue that he was even in the World Fair, and he wound up committing suicide. But he was in the World Fair, and what they were doing, they was trying to depict you as a savage, because they had to take away the royalty of who you were. So they used these Africans and depict, and us indigenous people, we could not go to the World's Fair, and we were fighting too, but we were not allowed to go. But they were using African people and put them in this World Fair, and was showing in the white people was around looking at these people while they was feeding them food like they were savages. But the Pan African people knew of that. That's just like Sarah Bartman, Hottie Tot Venus. She was in the World's Fair in Paris. But they had to leave all of this out, because to tell you about the World Fair, they would have to tell you what they really did. They would have to tell you how they blew up your buildings, and they used the World Fair not to. They claimed that they used it so people could see the technology, but no, they used it so they can hide who you really were. And these World Fairs, they took place in New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, um, California, St. Louis, and they would do this annually in one of the states, or it would be in Paris, but it was always in North or South America. It was always there, and it's like they had all kind of like silly stuff. They had replicas. Now, Christopher Columbus never came to North America. He went to South America, but they had replicas of his ships, the 3 ships. They had replicas of it in this World Fair because it was a new agenda that they was trying to get out. That's why they handed out the Pan American certificates, because they were setting up a new world in America. That's why they call America the New World, but it's very old. And that's why in Chicago they had to paint the buildings white, so you would never catch on to these is just old buildings. And a lot of them, like if you look at them like that, when they say that they was in construction, a lot of them still had grass on the ground. When something is in construction, you only see the dirt. So what they were doing, they was just adding more to these buildings. Like even if you look at some of them dorms, them domes you see, like when you're driving on the expressway, that's pure gold on them domes right here in America. And I know we don't call our mounds, we don't call them pyramids, but it's so many huge mounds over here. We live like royalty. When we wore the feathers and we wore the when you see the teepees, we was outdoors. We was people that stayed outdoors. We was not in the house like they got us in the house now. That's why we're so sickly. We was outdoors. We was hunters. We was fishers. We fishermen. We did all of this stuff, but they took it away. And then everything that you was over, like farming, hunting, they begin to do it for you. So this is why I noticed, Carrie, you was talking about the soy, the meat. This is why now you getting fed meat like that, because you no longer over the stuff that you was over, because you was over everything. And this is why they had to deaden us. Basically, they deadened who we were. The people you see on TV is not us. They're not us. The people you see on TV, we don't carry ourselves like that. And everything is about a vote. We got to go vote. In order to get this done, you got to go vote. In order to get this done, you got to go vote. And that's all we know. Then you put melanated people in office that's not for you, but against you. And we've been doing this for years. If America is so new, why is it that this World Fair was never in Africa? In Africa, this prestigious place where, they only tell us that we need to go over there. They don't tell nobody else to go to Africa. They just tell us to go to Africa. While all of they people is coming over here portraying like they you, and they're not you. Because you can look at their faces, clearly see that they're Africans. But they come over here and they give them a position, because see, when they come over here and they give them that position, they know they Africans. And what they're going to do is they're going to let all they people in and continuously keep their foot on your neck, because you don't want to know who you are. So when I come out and I tell you about Tatarian, or I tell you about the World's Fair, you mad at me, but it's your history. And all you have to do is tap back into who you are as a person. That the World Fair was not, it was about destroying everything about you. Just imagine how they sit up here, we sitting up here and we royalty. Everybody in on this joke besides you. And they look at you and treat you like you a slave, but you ran everything. But they look at you and treat you any type of way, because they know you have lost your power and you have lost your memory of who you really are. So those beautiful buildings like the White House, how most of our buildings was built like that, they had to tear them down, because they had to tear down the way you thought of yourself.
Oh, And what a wonderful job they've done. What about the technology of that time?
I was going
Because
to speak on that.
yeah, because when we talk about that time, we all, electricity, some of we use better fuels.
Yes.
What's the information on that?
Well, check this out. Recently, stopped seeing people posting some pictures of vehicles. Now, I used to always tell people that the Wright brothers didn't invent the plane. They saw two little children in the Carolinas throwing a little paper plane back and forth. And hence, it was like, where did this information come? We're talking about a pretty long time ago. They were just redistributing the information that was already there. Now, we had cars that run on electricity. We had cars that run on water. And I ain't talking about steam. We had electricity. You can see that by the demonstration of World's Fair, because it came to my knowledge from an older gentleman who saw one of my videos. He hit me up. He's like, "You're Rick. In those pictures, when it shows them and it says that with stucco, but they had a different word for name for it, wood and mesh and all this, they were building this grand place for the World's Fair everywhere. What they were doing, they were tearing it down systematically. They were tearing down a lot of our structures that we govern. Like we went and burnt the Capitol. We destroyed the Capitol, just like we set the fires in one of the greatest cities in San Francisco. And I was surprised. But what they don't show you, and you can find, is and they tell you it's telegraph, which is complete nonsense. We have towers and poles that didn't have no wires on all the blocks. And then we had certain places when they got to certain, like what they call those churches, they're not cathedrals. They were places to balance people. Hill for war. We've been at war. They had all these wires running into back of them. And they were very close in the streets around. And what's funny is all them brownstones, that's when they're from. Majority of them brownstones, them cobble roads and them brick roads that we laid, because they couldn't mitigate it. And the concrete we made. All that from the electric. Where you think they got the electric sliding sidewalk? You think they just came up a bunch of illiterates, penile, orphan children? The majority of them were orphan children. We're talking about millions of orphan children. Like they're gonna come here, like they schooled and taught them how to construction, masonry, and all that in such a short period of time, to take a grand city to be able to carry 300,000 people and build that city up in anywhere from 15 to 30 years? Nonsense. Look at the obelisk. I want to point this out. In Central Park, I used to visit it all the time. That thing is 240 tons. Now, don't y'all remember in school, they told us that the pyramids, and we're talking about 100-ton slabs, there's no way we could move them into place. But they want you to believe in 1811 that this railroad zealot, this idiot, I don't want to give his name any energy, Vanderbilt, was able to get a team of people together to move that obelisk 240. Come on, 240 tons? With what? Only we had the technology and the skill and the machinery, which we buried. There was a group of individuals, Indians, who showed these idiots in Chicago by digging down the cities underneath. They knew nothing about it. That's why you think they wrote about it, because if they were smart, they wouldn't have wrote about it. In New York, the round subways, they wanted everybody to believe that came out of the World's Fair. They were already there. City upon the city, even the Vatican's letters. We had electricity. That's now I realize where people get Aether from. But leave that alone. We're pure energy, people. What is carbon? What is the molecular data or structure of carbon? That's what they express. H2O, when it's really H3O. They lie so perversely. And when it comes to science, who created the radiation and the heart and the brain? The brothers and sisters. Come on. The instruments, them organs, they played a certain way, they would heal you. There's been some stories of regeneration. We had incredible stuff. And all they did after all the wars, by way of war, proxy of wars, was redistribute the wealth and information under the Kabbalists, those Luciferians or whatever you want to call them, these new Masons, and made wealth off of it, and then made us go broke. And the only way they could do that was by war. So it wasn't about science. We were peaceful, and they brought war and division. So we had everything. I want to say this: how do you go from these great castles all over the world, moving into them, have to knock holes to poop out the side of the building, and the peasants look in these castles, no heating elements in there at all, but there's cisterns and everything for toiletry. And then you move into the other cities over in St. Petersburg, England, Britannia, over here in New York, and you're pouring pee and poop out the window. But you're supposed to be a great white supremacist race. But there was Negroes in there. White didn't have nothing to do with pale skin. Because a lot of them people coming over were Negroes. And I mean Negroes of that continent. Coloreds, the indigenous people of those lands. They came here, and that's who we fought. When they say brother against brother, that's what it was. And all our history was on hold. And it was this meaningless war after war after war after war after war. And then when it looked like we pretty much lost, what did they do? They started moving in. And there's pictures to back it up. All these cities all over Earth, completely empty and taking pictures of around the same time for months. Empty. Or you would see a Negro pulling a cart. Or a Negro woman standing by a building with a hand in her face. They couldn't believe what was happening. You could see the poles, look like, would you see the phone antennas? It had things like that on them. The gold and copper, the minarets, the top of the cathedrals and all that, the power sources. There were holes in the middle of those floors where fires burnt when we walked around. They just took that out and put pews. You know what I'm saying? We were a great, innovative people. When I was in Newark, New Jersey, I was surprised because I went over to Brooklyn and saw the same thing. I was like, all these brownstones. And this is when I came back. I was still in the military. I came home, buried my father, and it really hit me. I started thinking about when I was over in Cannes, France, Majorca, Spain, killed Germany. I was like, wait. I've seen this before. Then I remember the brown, it's like a computer board. It's like the copper, like the capacitor. Then the so-called churches now was the center places for the electricity to be gathered from the ether. And then the wires around from the back distributed. And that's why there were street lamps, houses had lights. We had grand factories. Real shit. It's all there, and then they tore all of it down. So much of it. And the pictures still are there. And they want you to believe that they built all that. And how long did it take them to build some of those places, Rabel? Like a couple of months?
About some of them, it was 50-something days.
Yeah.
Chicago, it took them, 2 years on 800 acres of land.
Land. Impossible. Even today.
Yeah. Philadelphia, it was 420 acres of land. One building was on 21 acres of land.
One building.
One building. That's
almost like the glass, what you call it in England.
Huh?
Almost like the glass, what you call it in England. The one that caught on fire in 1930, whatever. The Glass Palace in England.
The Glass Palace.
But it was a big one of the old. It was Tartarian, and it caught on fire mysteriously. A lot of places caught on fire mysteriously.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with us doing it like we did San Francisco and the capital. All right. A lot of people think they burnt down. No, we did it. That's why they don't really have an explanation for it. And then why do you think designers moved in there in Hollywood and all the other shit? They have to mitigate and control the narrative. We had it all. This is real talk. Now the pictures going around are legitimate too. They're not made up. No Moors played with it or this, that, and other. No disrespect if that's what you want to believe in. These pictures of 1700. I'm talking about electric powered goddamn cars that was driving a whole slew of them.
Mm-hmm.
Water powered with electric coils, not steam, no fire. What does that mean? Hydrogen.
Hey, let me ask you a question. So you've heard about this cat, Nikola Tesla, right?
I know his all too well. I visited where he died and everything.
You know, I just saw a piece on Niagara Falls, and I'll post it in African Americans Ain't Africans.
They destroyed all that.
You guys got to check this out. The power, like you say, electricity and stuff that was going on back then. The buildings you talking about where people went to be healed. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that seems something that was what these people were really doing.
Yeah, Niagara Falls is excellent. Great source of power. They destroyed that. What was it 1920 or something like that? 1940.
That was the late 1800s when they destroyed.
No, I think actually destroying it. The footage that I witnessed like 10 years ago that I was able to pull up in archives was said around 1920, something like that. Right? It was after the Civil War. It might have been right after or somewhere around there, but it was good footage, like camera footage, literally.
Yeah.
But I told you I worked at Thomas Edison Building. You know, the two old guys that ran the camera said, "Oh, this stuff was old." He says, "Oh yeah, they were bringing all these Jews in. Nikola Tesla was brought over. He didn't like what he saw because he didn't like it over there. Like the women that cried for many places to be saved. They couldn't believe in the destruction these Kabbalists were doing. That's why I said study the Theosophical Society. But the dams were power sources. The waterfall was behind a grand, like natural, and it was nothing but a major power source. And it was running in the 17, 16, 17, 1800s. They destroyed it. Obviously, you know where it powered, because that's Niagara Falls.
Mm-hmm.
I think about Napoleon Bonaparte. His statement: "The winner writes the history." Right? And he even made the example when they were betraying him that all history is a lie. And there's about several other individuals that are on my tablet. I've already spoke about 3 who have said the same thing. And these people all of a sudden mysteriously died broke, without a family. You see what I'm saying? We're talking about pale skins, people. Every picture you see, General Lee Custer, General Lee, niggas. David Jackson, niggas. They have painted a false perception for white supremacy. The Zionists did. We're not knocking on the Jews because a lot of the Jews can't stand Zionists. Facts, trust me on this. I watched them fight literally in Palestine. Every picture you see is a false representation, and that's because they don't want you to know your greatness and who you are and what we had already accomplished millennia ago. Millennia ago. I already spoke about the wireless energy. That's the whole part of the cathedrals run to a certain point, and the brownstones were like copper. You know, in certain plastic, like when I was doing construction, and you know what I'm talking about right here, okay. There are certain silica base and certain coppers, magnesium, like metals within some of the casts as far as concretes. There's different kinds. When I used to go to Brooklyn, we used to go, Queens, we used to go and get to this one depot to get all the mixes for different concretes. And then when I was Habitat of Humanities, like every slab was important the same. You had to have different stuff for different things. But when you study and learn about the actual contents of it, then you start to realize the concrete's even a receiver of some sort for energy. With the metal poles in it and the wood spaced at a certain angle, going up to a certain point, and then the metal plates that were in certain floors, and even in these minarets, these big things, these obelisks that be on top of some of these churches and stuff, was to harness that energy, that light. And they didn't always need wires. That was a quick source from our buildings, the way we lived, because we were energy. It was like we from Mother Earth, barefooted, we powered. She powered us, and we powered everything we did. Now, we went against the grain. We weren't supposed to be doing this shit. You know, with great power comes great responsibilities, and we lack that. And then when the time comes for the pale wolf and the dark wolf, we didn't kill all the bad pale wolf children. We just locked them away. And that's when we come into the story. And there was electricity back then, the armor and stuff they wore, Alexander, and betrayed by his cousin, Hannibal, and let them motherfuckers back out. And they were called desert devils. Are you aware? People want to know, how did the sand get over in which called Africa? That sand in the Sahara, whatever. It's not even indigenous to that land. You know where it comes from? I want y'all to research this, people. This is how I go about it. The sand over there in the whatever fucking desert I've been over, I don't even like it. You couldn't get me going through that motherfucker where they was cannibalizing the Ethiopians and shit when they came out. Oh, literally, they was eating everything that moved. 4-legged, 2-legged, 3-legged. They were eating it all until they were grabbed up by the Moors and circumvented in the upper Ethiopia, Hindustan, which was upper Ethiopia. Okay? And then they were cultivated. And the women, and the half-breeds, and the wars, and then having all those children to raise them in ignorance. How do you think they were able to bring them over here and subjugate us to their ignorance? Taking ours, stealing ours. The real slave trade was taking them all overseas. Hell, it's in the documents. They took us over to England. So where's the Mongols? Not to disrespect them, but I'm just saying, stating a fact. Power was everywhere. The Great Wall is not the only one. There's one in the Sahara Desert. They don't never want you to know about. That was the wall that kept their asses locked away on what's that, Moleki, whatever the fuck it's called. People showing you that map with the little hairy pale skin dudes and all that. It's a great wall out there. It all had power. It was like it was electrified. I've been to the Great Wall of China. I saw shit that you had to keep walking and you couldn't really talk about, even in the places that they were trying to fix up that had growth and trees that was breaking through it. They didn't build it. It has metal points at certain parts. This you can see it's like burnt, like electrical burnt, like they have turned this thing on high fry, but it's there at different points. They want you to believe that was made and connected with right concrete. There's no way. When you walk in this thing, you're sitting there looking at how big this thing is. It's like, how did they do it? Machines. Machines. When you see with some of that Great Wall, when you go into different parts of it, you see how massive it is. It's like, ain't no way. No, 500,000 motherfucking soldiers every day and night was packing wood and making rice concrete. The lies. All right? And they tell you how old the wall is, but you can see this point. So you knew there was electricity running through these things. They had to have light to see when the enemy was coming and those long nights they had.
Yes. So Rebel, Tartaria, you said they were doing it in St. Louis and Chicago. I mean, what was the reason for that?
Yeah, you know what, they would pick a place annually when they did it, because they was doing it all over North and South America. They was doing it all over, North and South America. And one thing I want to point out too, his name is Hubert Howie Bencroft. And that's who wrote all of the history. The history we know today, the government, he had a business, a lucrative business. Him and his brother was running. He stopped running that business, and they gave him like about tens of thousands of books. And he had 6 employees working for him, including himself. And he never gave them credit for anything. And he read through those books, and he picked what he wanted to pick. Like the American history, when you go to school, you looking at stuff that he wrote, that he came up with, and it was nothing but a lie. In the 1870s, he wrote about, they called them the Native Indians, but he was really rewriting us and turning us into the Native Indians. In 1870, he wrote that. And then he wrote about the World's Fair. And then after, when he wrote about the American history and all of that, then all of a sudden the building caught on fire and all of the books burned up. And this is the stuff that they did. And they had to do this in order to hide who we really were. And one thing I'm not doing is taking away indigenous. We're Indians. We was here first, but it was more to us than us just walking around with leaves on and feathers in our hair. We was brilliant people. And the World Fair, that was just to start a new world. It was the start of the new world order. And what they did, like from 1851 to I believe it was 1938, that was the industrializing of it, like the technology. They was just showing off our stuff. And then after that, they came up with the it was called the cultural exchange, and that happened from 1838 to no from 1938 to 1988, and basically that was dealing with the cultures, more of the cultural type. But back in like the 1800s, they was just showing off our stuff, trying to make it seem as though they came up with all of this stuff. But if you look at every world fair, you can tell that they're not used to it. The way they're acting, you can tell that they're not used to that type of stuff. And then after 1988, they came with nation building, and that was basically improving the nation. So it's still going on today. They just changed the narrative of it. They changed the narrative, and the problem is they cannot. It's like the way you see that when they blew up the buildings after the World's Fair, and that goes for New York, Philadelphia. When they blew up these buildings, it was like they didn't want us to ever revisit that again. They wanted us to always believe that we was a slave. And one thing I do believe, the reason why they came up with that jab, that was to change us again, because they know more about us than we know about ourselves, and they knew what they did wasn't going to last forever. And it's so many of us, and thanks to you, Carrie, thanks for you for even coming out, even telling us that we was indigenous. They knew one day we was going to wake up and catch on to what they were doing. So they was trying to reset it. They just couldn't do it. But when all of this stuff was taking place, when they came out with Corona and all of this stuff, that was to reset it, to make you to get you further away from who you are. And they had a problem with that because so many of us, we wasn't going anymore. We didn't want to. None of us want to hear what they have to say. None of us want to work their jobs anymore. We're tired. We're at the point right now, we're tired because we see all of the lies. And every time you dig deeper and you dig deeper and you dig deeper, you see all the lies that they have told. Now, how you take, like when they came out with Rosewood, if John Singletary came out with Rosewood, then that means that he knew about the World's Fair, because you can't take away from that, because we was fighting with them all over America. We was doing it. So you can't take away from that. If you know about Sarah Bartman, then you know about the World's Fair. So why hide it? And then they got these ugly buildings. Our buildings was not like that. And a lot of times we don't deal with that many melanated people. We just deal with certain ones that we feel comfortable around. But if you really just look at melanated people, look at them and how some of them, they still act like they royalty. You can see it when you're talking to them. That don't come from a slave. And then one more thing I want to point out. By me hanging around a lot of Africans, I know Africans that been here 30 years, 40 years, and they still got their accent. How did we lose ours? Since we came from Africa, how did we lose ours so quickly? But I know people, they've been here for the longest and they still got that accent. They told us anything. I remember I used to look around and I see the roads, how the roads is built. And I'm like, man, so little time they built all of this stuff. Come to find out the bridges, all of that stuff was yours. And they kept little fragments around. So you would look at these buildings and you be at awe, but you would think that you really didn't have much to do with it, and or you had to be a slave, and some white person had to be over you to build the White House. That was our building. That was our governmental building that they took it and made it theirs. And if you want to get real technical, they got all these drawings of these presidents. Those was not white men. Those was melanated men. But they want to play with us and make us think that those was white men. And they're what? They wasn't. Because if Abraham Lincoln would have got in office, and we all know that he was a melanated man, even when they describe his father, Thomas Lincoln, they described him as a dark man. What made Abraham a white man? What white man had nothing to do with a color. It's because he came from England. His father was from England, so that gave him that white status. That's why you see now. Look closely. You have to look at things and look closely. Look at the boule. Those are melanated people like yourself, but they're rich. They considered as white people, because all of us that's like me and other people, we're not rich. They don't include us in that bloodline, but they're in that bloodline. They can go get whatever they want. And these are colored people. But it's certain things you got to do to get to that point. And most of the time, when they finish with you, it's a tragedy anyway, because they're going to make sure it's tragic for you when it comes to us. But the mudslide and the World Fair had nothing to do with the only thing it had nothing to do with them showing off technology, but what it had to do with them going around blowing up your buildings. So you never found out who you were. And then when you go a little deeper, then that's when the orphan train come along, and then you know about slavery. That's where slavery took place. And that's another time. I would like to come back and be able to discuss that too when I make the video, but I would like to come back and do that. But we were never in slavery.
Okay,
and they had at this World Fair, they had like silly stuff like they had a building and they made it seem as though you was in hell. This is how immature these people was. They wasn't on our level. This is why when you look at them and you think they're fearful of you physically, but no, it's mentally that they're really fearful of you, because they know you got the capability to be royalty. When they say that the melanated man and woman in America is like Superman, that is what we really are. But they don't want to give us that credit. They don't never want us to look at ourselves like we're something. That's why I said I would never talk about slavery, because that's not my history. That's not my history. That was a history that was taught to me, starting in like 6th grade and on to 12th grade. Well, I dropped out in the 10th. They kept going with that same narrative. You a slave. So now you wondering why our children is suicidal in the 3rd grade. I have a close friend that's a school teacher. These melanated children don't even want to live no more. And look how our buildings was elegant. And you look at them, they all boxed and just nothing to them. They made America they institutionalized the buildings. And it's like they didn't put, when we did our art, when we put up our buildings, it was art to it. It was well thought out. If you look at them buildings, even the old ones, and when you go up in them, you amazed. Look how long the White House been standing, and look, it's still beautiful, and it's still standing. If you go in the hood and you look at the replicas, because when you went in the hood, you would see the buildings was just like the buildings downtown. They were smaller. Them buildings is still standing to this day. It's just they got them boarded up because they don't want nobody to mess with them. And you look at that building and you know it's different, but they keep it there. For what reason, I don't know. But they keep all them buildings in the hood and they keep them boarded up. That's you. And then they give us these tall buildings and with glass, with the glass. I guess they glass features on them, and they look like nothing. And it's almost like it's a depression because it's ugly. It's not us who we are. We're people of color, and when you look at these buildings, the new ones, you don't see that. And they can't build what we built back in the day.
You know what, this view that we have of ourselves, we put this umbrella of black over our head every day. We walk around, when you see images of indigenous people, they never wore sunglasses. We're always trying to block out something, or don't let nobody see something. Is that how we were trained? Because it's what you were saying. It's like you saying, we know something, but we just can't put our hands on it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
they did that when we, yeah, it's like they had to do us like that because of who we were as people. Because you notice we the only ones that's enslaved, that got the narrative that we came on the bottom of a ship. That shows you the power that we possess. For them to sit up here and tell a group of people that just this one group of people, well, they did it in Jamaica too, but to tell us that we were slaves, to tell us that everything about just how they lie, it's sad when you think about it. They tell us. I remember when my seventh grade teacher, he was a white guy, told me, and I was the only melanated person in that classroom, and he told me that I was a slave, and everything that we know the white man taught us.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wonder, and they probably teaching the same thing. You wonder why these kids, our melanated children, is so angry because they ain't got nobody to defend them. Because the main ones that we're putting in office, that's in office, will never go against that. Even though they may know it's a lie, they will never go against it because they trying to keep them pockets fat. So they have to keep going along with this narrative that they know is a lie. And they can care less about your child. They can care less about your child thinking that they're worthless. And they're not worthless. Because everything that goes on, every trend comes from us.
Yep.
All the women in different, even women that ain't even of a melanin descent, tries to be you. The melanated men that come over here, even the Africans, cannot even act like the brothers over here. They can't do it because it's a type of swag we got. Don't nobody got it but us. And look at us. Most of us ain't got nothing. Most of us ain't got nothing, but we still act like we're royalty because that's where we come from. How can you say that we slaves, but we act like we sit up here and we want the best of everything? And you mean to tell me I was nothing but a slave and I came from nothing?
Yeah.
That don't, it's not making any sense. You got, I got a video I'm gonna post on my page, a 4-year-old girl, melanated girl, and she already know algebra at 4 years old. Smart as heck.
20. Yeah.
They send your children. The only reason they want you to go to their school is to learn that slave story, to break your children's spirit, because they used to breaking our spirit and telling us that we nothing, and our parents allowed them to do that to us. Instead of checking them, they allowed it just for a check, just to live in a cheap apartment, 800, what is it, 800 to 1,200 square feet, because that's all they're gonna give you anyway. We risk it all just for that. And then they scared us when they came out with them moves. See, everything they do, that's just like when they came out with Jaws. You know, one thing about melanated people, we ain't about to do nothing we don't know nothing about. So you stop going. And I remember when I was a little girl, right there in Detroit, I would go to Rouge Beach and take off my shoes, go deep in the water, do all kind of stuff. So they come out with Jaws. We don't go to the beach like that no more. Then they came out with Jason. We ain't going in no woods because we think he gonna meet us there. This is the type of stuff they did to us. So we stay in one spot. Then you turn on the news and all they talking about is other countries after us. So we stay in that one spot. And the only people that know the truth is the military men because they have been out of state. They ain't afraid. They've been out of state. They've been to different countries, so they know that this is nothing but a lie.
Then get the fuck out on that.
You know? So I don't want to take up too much time.
Yo, I'm gonna add to that. Yo, Kerry, hold on. I'm gonna give information because it's not a spotlight for me. I got my own channel to do this, and I just want to share this. My boy over here, Walt Whitman. This is gonna help you have. Look, I always tell people, sleight of hand. See this right here? Y'all remember this little shit when you do the little thumb thing?
Mm-hmm.
Sleight of hand, magic tricks. All right. First thing, when I say to you wars, we have been fighting wars nonstop before the Revolutionary War. That was a nigger war too. Don't get it fucked up. They wasn't but a handful of them motherfuckers here. Now we had our own pale skin people, but they were different from what we see today. Because they lynched and murdered them motherfuckers right alongside us down the south when we started migrating up north and all them different places. Excuse me, to get away from all these motherfuckers coming off. Because the majority of pale skins came here in 1920 and 1940s. That is a historical fact. I learned that when I was in law school. So anyway, this individual right here, Walt Whitman, a biography by Milton Meltzer, describes in that, and I got the book coming. Now, actually, I ordered 5 of them. So I'm going to send you one, Robel, and I'll send you one, Kerry, okay? I only paid $12 for it, all right? This book right here. He describes Abe Lincoln. That's how, by reading his book in PDF form, I learned that Abe Lincoln was a nigger. I'm being very derogatory when I say this because nigga does mean healing water. I've said that well over 15 years ago. I said that when I first came on this from MySpace. And people was like, oh, this motherfucker crazy. You know, he got that PTSD. That's all I heard. He describes with his curly cropped hair why you think he on the copper penny. And this history goes all the way over because I'm going to show you another one. And I'm going to give you the information where you can check it out yourselves to the audience, all right? I remember watching this brother when he first came on, and I just love what he was doing because that's who we are. This guy is Alexander Isaac Solzhenitsyn of he was born, I forget, like late 18 to 19, early 1900s. This is his statement in Russia. We know they are lying. We know they are lying. Wait, we know they are lying. They know they are lying. They know we know they are lying. We know they know we know they are lying. This is not a fucking joke. But they are still lying. Alexander, I guess, well, this is him. A Jew. A real quote. It was a poem. He wrote poems. I'm not done. Hold on. I'm going to take my time here because this shit is... How many of y'all know about Ida P. Wells? We're going to leave that right there. And who was she married to? All right? See, this information was in the schools, but it was not the pick of the library unless you had the knowledge to go on. You know what I'm saying? Judah P. Benjamin, a Jew on the Confederacy. I'm going to show you a picture of this motherfucker right now. I'm going to tell you that this picture's every last one of these pictures. I mean, I got it on my, I could have just put it in here and shared it with you as you put it up. Every one of these pictures right here are false. Why do I say they're false? Okay. Judah B. Benjamin, 1811-1884, was a brilliant and successful lawyer in New Orleans and one of the first Jewish members of the U.S. Senate. He then served in the Confederacy as Secretary of War and Secretary of State, becoming the confidant and alter ego. Well, if you go ahead and download this right here, you will know his description. He was a Negro. Let me tell you something. General E. Lee, a Negro. By description in the congressional records. Tawny. Do you know what? Brunette has nothing to do with the hair. Brunette is a mahogany color. Tawny is not fair. It's not a pale skin. They got a little suntan. It's this complexion and darker. I've got so many more. I'm saving them on my channel because I promised them I was going to give them a little history on how they went about it. But what it, and you heard me say this, Kerry, it takes one generation to change history. One generation. And in the 1700s, over in England, Germany, so-called Prussia, they were going door to door, supposedly collecting the sick babies. Not were they only sacrificing and dissecting them. They were taking a bunch of them and making them orphans and putting them in before it came here in St. Augustine, the first one, in these little charter or these what you call schools. And all the natives claimed, oh, we was in this school in the Vatican and they beat us and killed. Man, nigga, the first one was in by the Spaniards. And it was to learn our history in St. Augustine. I went there several times, took the ex-wife. And then listened to people who still live down there, Creole and Seminole, dark old motherfuckers, and says, they learned everything from us in that building. That little ass school that's surrounded by all them drinking places, all these pills getting run, and Cubans and all that other stuff. I'm telling you, the real history, we are the history. It is in us. The knowledge is with us, and it's in writing. Problem is, the education system that was really established after that little negress and that little Jewish woman sit there, funded by David Rockefeller, paid to the CIA. My aunt and them didn't go to school for no 8 hours before that. After that was established during Vietnam, we started going to 8 because they wanted to indoctrinate us further. And that was with the families. Even though Vietnam was going on, that's with the families. And they taught us in the education system, the Kabbalist Zionist education system, they taught us false history, gave us false pictures, made us look at the earth round and all this other pure fabricated lies. How many years is this after the World's Fair? And how many wars deep were we in?
Rebel?
That's simple.
Rebel?
Uh-huh. Yeah. You wanted to say something?
No, I wanted you to say something.
Oh, okay. That's basically when it comes to the World Fair, is basically them resetting you to who you are today.
That's right.
That's basically the whole thing for you not to think highly of yourself. That's and the way you see America today, America was not like this. It was totally different. You lived a totally different life. You was free. All of this fighting and stuff that you see today and us jumping on each other. Yeah, we were fighting back then when we began to fight each other. But that's like the replica of it. Like it's like we're still those same people. And what we have to do when it comes to when we look at we have to learn from what we're going through now and what we have been through, because they changed our whole identity of who we was and who we are today. They changed our whole identity. And this is why when you see us, we have this disdain for each other, because we forgot who we were. And it's like we have gotten so used to being in competition with each other instead of just okay, well, if Kerry Davis come out with a video today, let me look at his video, let me share his video. If he's saying something that's beneficial, let me support him. If Red is saying something that's beneficial, let me support him. We have forgotten how to do that. So what we do just what they did to us. We it's like we don't have no respect for one another. We have to stop competing, because that's where we losing out at. When we compete with one another, we're losing out. First of all, you don't know what type of person, how that person could have benefited your life. So we have to stop competing, because they have done that, so we never come together as a whole and try to build as a whole. You see it in our families, and you see it just us dealing with one another. Except people that's why we were made different. Nothing, if you look at, even though we look alike, because we all three of us is indigenous, but we don't look alike. It's a reason for that. Accept my beauty like I accept your beauty. That's how it should be. That goes for even if it's a bunch of female or males or if it's a bunch of males. We have to respect each other where you at in life. And that's something that we lost when it came to them turning us and giving us this slave mentality. It's like we enjoy, like when we do somebody wrong, we enjoy that because we think we're dogs anyway. We have to teach these children, show them if you have to get out your bed and take your daughter or your son, show them what they come from. Because the buildings is still here. It's just that, we don't, if you don't study, you're not gonna know. But once you begin to study, take your children to these big cathedrals and these domes made of gold. Take your children and let them see what they come from. Stop going against your child. Tell your child that history teacher is lying. George Washington was not the first president of America. Teach your children the truth and get them out of that mindset where they think they're nothing. Because suicide, that wasn't even discussed when I was in 3rd grade. And I had a rough life. But suicide, that wasn't discussed. But these young children, they so fed up. They just ready to just go. They don't want no parts of it. And nobody is concerned because it's about chasing paper all the time. You chasing some cloth. It's about chasing money all the time. And if money ain't involved, then I can't do it. But that came from that mentality where we don't care what we do to what we do to one another. But we came from royalty. To get to royalty, we had to be magnificent people.
And we can all be getting the bag
that they took from us.
We can all be getting the bag.
Huh?
We can all be getting the bag.
There you go. We have to get out of the competition type thing. Because I could have looked at Carrie Davis' platform. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm calling you Davis, but I could have looked at Carrie platform and be like, you know what, I ain't messing with him because he have a big platform. I didn't do that. I looked at him as though this is a great man. The same thing as you read. This is a great man with a lot of information. He's an influencer. And that's who you should surround yourself with is people that's doing positive things to build us back up.
Those that walk in it.
Huh?
Those who walk in it. Who literally walk in that life.
Yeah.
Not the aberrations and the people that act. Like I was saying about, and I know it seemed like I didn't finish, but I do that because I don't like to give a whole lot on somebody else's platform. When I was stating that about Nikola Tesla, right, and Einstein, and talking to them old heads that worked there, it amazed me to learn that Negroes were making all the inventions and they were giving it to the pale skinners to patent it so they have ownership because we were under a barter system. And ever since then, when it came to ownership about paying for something, we really went at each other. We're out of order.
James, can you repeat that again?
About Einstein and Nikola, what they were doing as far as taking our stuff, patenting it.
Yeah, how that
we were under the barter system. We actually still are, if you know who you are. They can't remove that. But the thing is, nobody knows their treaties, don't know their clan, their tribe, or anything. So we can't be as one and say, we're here, we ain't gone nowhere, and we know that we're actually speaking our language, but y'all create legalese between English. But what they did was they took all of our stuff, put an ownership on it, an entitlement, gave it to false characters.
Yeah.
And we started fighting one another because now it became about monetary, about a bag. Back then, not too long ago, within a 100-year period, especially in the 60s when they started really breaking the families and institutionalizing the fake education system. And we started fighting each other because we didn't know, we don't have no focus. Who do we fight? We are the greatest goddamn warriors, the greatest everything you could think of. They could train all the special, they can do all that they want. You take all them brothers out of jail, you take all these brothers and you give them a grounds of perception, not based and steeped in a lie, but give them the truth. We would burn this motherfucker down. and nobody can stop it. They wouldn't come over here. He farther be trying to get on the nearest steamboat and plane out of here. They're that serious. And it's coming to that. They
But
control the narrative. They control the narrative with this shit.
Have you noticed like okay, with these world fairs, it was like 60 different countries that came to visit with this world fair, and we were still in horse and buggy. This is what they're saying. That's the era we was at. But if you notice, I try my best not to go in their stores, not to do none of that. But
Right.
you see the anger that be in their face if you ask them something. You see how they look at you like you dirt. But the only reason that they able to do what they do is because we don't know who we are. We don't know our royalty. And with knowing your royalty, a lot of the stuff that we do, even as melanated women, you have to give them their stuff back because your hair is the antennas of the universe. That's how so you get into you can intelligence come from your hair, because it's antennas. And it's like, if we gave them back all of their stuff, that's just like eyelashes. We think that we have to have this type of stuff on. If we begin to really be ourselves and get back into who we are, we will be untouchable again. And we're going to get to that point. And it's happening as we speak. It's just a lot of people don't see it because they want to be lukewarm about it. They don't want to put in the work. They don't want to buy a book. They want people to just tell them stuff. You got to put your all into it until you get it, until you understand it. Because that's just like when you came out and telling us that we was indigenous, Carrie. You got a lot of fight. People was angry. Well, now I'm saying is that, and it's not only me, it's a lot of people know about the Tartarian in that era. But yet they don't want us to talk about it. Why is it that these Caucasians can talk about it, but all these melanin people that you so-called woke, and you don't want to talk about that? You want to keep it strictly on slavery. All of the patterns in America, the melanated man, everything that's used all around the world came from the melanated man right here. And you don't know your greatness. And then they sit up here. No, if a man joined the football team, the basketball, these NBA or NFL, if you join that, it should be a melanated man over you. These young melanated boys got to go through a white man in order to get on the team. So that white man can control all of their money. So they got a serious system set up so no money ever go back to the hood.
But isn't it up to us to fix that? I mean, isn't it up to us? I mean, really? Because see, we complain about a lot of shit, but like you said earlier, we participate in it. We make sure a lot of this happens. I mean, we do that ourselves. Isn't that on us?
That's right. Yes, it is. Damn right it is.
So,
Damn right it is.
I mean, and what I mean by indigenous, y'all, is this. It's just plain and simple. All land masses everywhere, Russia, Africa, the Middle East, blah, 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 everywhere on Australia, everywhere creates the people that are going to be on that part of the planet. I mean, this is elementary. Like you have animals. You don't have the same animals in Africa that you have here. You don't have giraffe walking around here. So the people that were created for the Americans, the soul people, look it up. Americans, look it up. You can say a word in different languages and it means different things.
That's right.
You can do that. If somebody tells you to sit like a dog and you sit and you never think from that your whole life, you a slave, dude. Period.
Oh shit. Be right back.
You're a slave. So what they're telling you about all this stuff, this is why
Yeah.
it's important to find out of your family. Do a history lesson on yourself. You'd be surprised what you find. That's why they tell you you're African, right? Isn't
Yeah,
that why they
yeah,
tell you
yeah.
African? So get with your families. Get with all of them who you think can
I'll
know
be
this
right there, bro. Hold on.
because some of these people know what's happening. Some of these people know what's happening in your families. Do a history lesson on yourself. Do a history lesson on yourself. Rebel, last words. You got to get out of here.
You know what? I just want just people to just study and show yourself approved. And all of this is America. A lot of stuff they have built over a lot of our stuff and blew up a lot of our stuff, but a lot of our stuff is still here, and we need to just begin to keep building on learning about who we really are. And thank you for having me on here, Carrie.
You know, Rebel, anytime. I don't care if you call me 3 hours from now.
Thank you.
You're always welcome. I love what you share too, because it gets people to think about stuff that normally they wouldn't think about because of all this radiation going on in the air. It blocks out the thought. So I really appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, apologies, guys.
Yeah.
Mr. Red Wolf,
Yes,
your
sir.
last words before we get out of here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna need your PO box. I need both of y'all so I can send y'all these books when I get them. I should be getting them.
Okay.
I believe Thursday. I ordered 5 of them, so I will make sure you get 2. Every time I order books, I order like 4 or 5, and I would send it to a few people. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to share this, man. What is that? I had to run over there because somebody was knocking on the door. It's about money. Hold on, let me grab it. I'll put it over here. That's me with all the information in my hand. I'm like Rob Bell, y'all. That's why I share references, sources, I mention names and stuff and shit, because you need to study. You need to, you got to know self. You know what I mean? If you don't know self, you don't know shit. I don't care what you do or how much you talk, what you say, it don't matter. I want to share this. What have we learned about Louisiana, right? People don't even know the relationship that the Haitians and Louisiana and the Creoles and the people up even in Canada, what they have a relationship. We believe that the Haitians that went to Canada have no relationship to the Americas. That's bullcrap. A lot of people were taken there. And the same story of the same butch they call a werewolf, the Rogoru, is our story. Mythologized after the world's there. Our history is rich. They took it and you see what they did in Hollywood, and Zionists, the werewolf, the mummy, all our shit. Even reanimating life, Frankenstein. And what they give you? Some little girl over in Germany who was betrayed by the people in the same block. Come on. It's all ours. You just got to be able to chew the meat for your meat eaters and spit out the bones or shake the chaff from the goddamn wheat instead of all this religious shit. I'm not knocking nobody's goddamn religion. But fundamentally, y'all are some of the biggest fucking hypocrites on the planet. Dressing up like Goku, Krillin, Vegeta and shit, like you Dragon Ball Z. I mean, the shit I'm saying. Sitting there screaming and shaking in a goddamn place you want to call a church. Talking about something from a movement. And don't even understand that this is conditioning. In order to free your mind, you got to carry that ass with you. It's supposed to follow. You've got to be self-evident of self. We're so busy focused on everybody else and everything, worried about the NBA and the NFL and all this other shit. Who got shot in Chicago? Played that out. All right? Instead of who the fuck you are. The world know who you is. The world know exactly who. Hey, Vixen, the world know who your ass is. It's just that you don't know who you are because you continue to allow them to dictate your fucking history and educate. That means raise, tear down, educate your children. That should be your goddamn job. Government ain't here to raise nobody. I mean, no, they're here to raise, excuse me. They're not here to educate or nurture anybody. With that, I've said enough.
Somebody turn to your neighbor. So, listen, guys, history lesson on self. You got to do it because a lot of these stories are really your stories. These are the people you come from. You keep thinking that you come from the desert over across the Atlantic or you a hotep and all that stuff. Go to those places and teach the people there that because they can use it more than the people here. Because the people here, when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, they really have nothing to do with anything over in those places. They're fictional people, written about in fictional places, and we try to put ourselves in all of them. When we're doing that, all the stuff that this man and woman talked about tonight, you turn your back on that and you go and get into these religions and ideology that don't have a goddamn thing to do with you. That's the reality. So, do a history lesson on yourself. If you got kids, start with them. Let them do it because kids really are a lot more, their minds are a lot more pliable than people as they get older. And kids like doing stuff like this. History lesson on yourself. Get with your families is very important because there's a lot that we're missing out on because we're not paying attention to it. So we're going to go ahead and end tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, being with us tonight. Hope you got some from this. I hope what they told you about Tataria and the times, these time frames. You don't have a calendar. What time do you say it is? So they can take a picture, put a year up under it, and tell you anything. You'll believe it. It's very important. Like Red Wolf said, know yourself. You on this planet for a reason. Fulfill it. Thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight, and we'll see you next time. Peace.